So I'm driving to the mountain with a bunch of straight guys. I'm with my college's ski and snowboard club team, and usually we have girls that come with us too on these trips, but for whatever reason this time, a bunch of the girls were busy and like only one girl could come, so we decided to just make it a guys trip. So we finally arrived at the cabin after driving for like 7 hours. It's already dark out, we unpack our stuff and immediately go hop in the jacuzzi. And I'm pretty sure all the guys were fairly tipsy at this point. I mean, yes, we just got into the house, but we are in college, okay? So like any group of confident, tipsy guys in college, we decided to go in the jacuzzi with no bathing suits. Now, I had been skinny dipping with guys before, but I was extra excited to go skinny dipping with these guys. I mean, not only are they a bunch of like hot, sexy snowboarding bros, but they're also my friends that I know pretty well, and I may or may not have developed a couple crushes on them. But anyways, we all strip down and hop in the jacuzzi. And the straight guys are being typical straight guys. Like, they're roughhousing, they're drinking a bunch, they're shoving each other's heads under the water, and I'm just kind of sitting there laughing in my head about like the pent-up masculine energy in this freaking hot tub. Plus, as they're roughhousing and like pushing each other around, there are lots of parts of their bodies that I am seeing for the first time. So I'm just like laying back and enjoying the show. And eventually the roughhousing kind of settles down and we start chatting. And the chatting leads to like some pretty deep conversations. And a few of the guys get out of the jacuzzi because they're getting too hot and they go back inside. But the ones of us who stayed in the jacuzzi were getting too hot too. So instead of getting out of the jacuzzi, we just kind of sat on the side of the jacuzzi. So now us remaining guys are sitting spread leg, all facing each other, while completely naked in the jacuzzi. Until almost immediately when one of my friends notices that I'm uncircumcised and he decides to call me out on it. So he asked me if I'm uncut and I was like, yeah. And he starts kind of laughing and making fun of me for it and saying that it looks like an elephant trunk. To which I calmly kind of laughed back at and was like, yeah, dude, that's how all of them are made. I went on to explain that that's the norm, and that's pretty much how everybody in the UK is. And one of the guys kind of defended me and was saying that that's totally normal. But the other guys were still like really thrown by it. So we started talking more about it. And while we were talking about it, we kind of like were pointing specific things out, using mine as an example, which led to pointing things out on a couple of theirs, using theirs as examples. And I don't know how, but as this conversation went on, it kind of got like more and more detailed and turned into like more and more comparing. And this turned into like me pulling it back. I don't remember how exactly that happened, but it was basically like to show that it's the same pulled back. And in the middle of all this, while we're comparing and talking way too much about each other's parts, I look up and notice that one of my friends is fully excited. And I ran out of time again. Sorry about that. Follow part 2. So as we're talking about the differences between cut and uncut and like fully comparing and doing show and tell with each other, I look up and notice that one of my friends is fully excited. And right when I noticed, the other guys definitely noticed too, because they immediately started making fun of him. Now, my friends know that I'm gay, so they're not being like completely homophobic, but they're definitely making jokes about him being gay, about me and him. Like, they're not gonna let him live this down. And as they're making jokes, to my surprise, one of the other straight guys jumps in and starts defending him. He was saying that it's normal to get excited when you're all talking about that kind of stuff and like looking at and touching areas. The other guys were still just laughing and making fun of him. I'm starting to make fun of the other guys for making fun of him. And then I start questioning their confidence in their own sexuality, saying that if there were girls in the hot tub and I got excited, I wouldn't be embarrassed. And even though I was defending him for getting excited, I'm not stupid. So I also was curious if he was curious. But obviously I'm not gonna like test the waters with him while there's all these straight guys around. But lucky for me, the guy who got excited is also sharing the room with me that night. Unluckily for me, one of the other guys is sharing the room with us too. So anyways, the jacuzzi convo ended. We went back inside. He was made fun of multiple times throughout the night for that. And I think it was about 2 a.m. by the time we actually went up to our room to go to bed. And at this point, the third guy who's supposed to share the room with us is completely wasted. So I don't know if he did this because he was like passed out wasted or if it was because he was just trying to do me a solid. But either way, he passes out on the couch. So now it's just me and Mr. Happy going to share the room together. And I am so excited at this point. Like, I'm still pretty sure that this guy's straight. But just the fact that he was excited in the jacuzzi made me kind of feel like I had a chance. So it's just me and him in the room. We're getting ready for bed. We're stripping down in front of each other. And as we're stripping down, it's like awkwardly silent. So we awkwardly climb into bed next to each other. Not the same bed. We had separate beds. And we're laying in bed silently for a few minutes before I finally get up the courage to start talking to him about what happened in the jacuzzi. So I lightheartedly bring it up, and he immediately gets defensive. I again reminded him that it's really not that big of a deal and it's pretty normal to have that happen. And I kind of go on to say that, like, things feel good whether you're with guys or with girls, and that it's normal to get excited when things feel good. To which he agrees, and he kind of like calms down a little bit, but he also reiterates that he's straight multiple times. And then after he says all this, he starts asking me about being on the hoodie team again. So I start talking to him about that and answering questions about what it's like and telling him that it's more sensitive and stuff like that. And he gets a little confused about some of the stuff I'm talking about, so I decide to do a little show and tell again. So I turn the lights back on and start showing him stuff. And sorry guys, I ran out of time again. Part 3 will be the final part, I promise. So I'm skinny dipping with a bunch of straight guys, and then they start making fun of me for being uncut, which turns into a whole conversation about the differences between cut and uncut, which turns into show and tell, which turns into one of the straight guys getting really excited. So everybody made fun of that guy. We kind of like moved on and got over it. People were drinking, people passed out, and then me and the guy who got excited have to go share a room together. So we get into our room, strip down, and climb into bed. Separate beds. And after laying in bed silently for a couple minutes, I decide to bring up what happened in the jacuzzi. And then he gets a little defensive, which turns into me reassuring him that it's okay to get excited around other guys, which turns into another conversation about cut and uncut, which turns into show and tell again. So at this point, I'm on a mission to do something with this guy. Like, I'm convinced that he is not fully straight, or at least he's interested in having something happen. I mean, we did show and tell in the jacuzzi and he got excited, and now he's letting me show him again. Straight guys don't do that. So I'm really hoping he'll do a little experimenting with me. But I want to make sure that he's comfortable and that he wants to experiment. So I keep kind of talking with him about the cut and uncut stuff. And as I'm talking about all this stuff and doing show and tell with him, I get excited, which we both start laughing about. And then I kind of like jokingly start saying that like, it's just because he's so cute and I can't help but get excited. Like, I am gay. And he kind of laughs back at that and acknowledges that he gets it and understands, but reiterates that he's straight and that I shouldn't get my hopes up. And I guess I was feeling confident at this point because I was immediately like, yeah, I know you're straight, but like, you wouldn't let a guy do anything for you? He totally knew what the fuck I was talking about, but he was like, what do you mean? So I'm just like laughing to myself at this point because it's fucking obvious that this guy wants to like experiment or do something. He's horny, I don't know. But society has these straight guys so sexually repressed that he thinks it's terrible for him to want to act on any of those feelings. So I still try to make him feel comfortable. So I go on to explain that it's really not that big of a deal if he wanted to just like lay back and let the job be done. It's pretty normal for guys to like that feeling, and it doesn't really matter who's doing it. To which he seemed quite intrigued, but was still kind of like hesitant. So I'm just like, look, like no big deal at all. If you don't want to, totally cool. But if you want like just a helping hand, I could do that and you could lay back and just relax. And I was actually kind of surprised that he agreed like immediately. So he lays back. My heart is like pounding through my chest. And I don't think I can go into too much more details here without violating guidelines. But let's just say I took my time. The mission was accomplished. We never told any of the other guys. And it may or may not have turned into a pretty regular thing. So the moral of this story is, gay or straight, every guy likes a helping hand.